When I was about 8 years old, my mother and I went away for the whole summer to a wonderful farm near the Moscow. There we rented a house from an old lady. I don't know exactly what her name was, but her mother called her grandmother Tanya. In general, it was not a detached house, but for two owners. Now they are called duplexes, and that one was still Soviet built. Grandmother Tanya was given it when she worked at a local collective farm in her youth. However, the other half of the house was always empty. There was a large lock on the door and the windows were boarded up. Previously, Grandma always went to stay with her son for the summer. He lived with her somewhere in Siberia. And this time she said that she would first go to the regional hospital for an examination, saying that her heart was acting up. I found out about what happened next quite recently, because then my mother did not scare me. Next, according to Mom, it had been about 3 weeks since we moved into this house when I heard strange noises outside the wall in the middle of the night. It was clearly audible how the clink of glasses, the sound of cutlery on plates and people's voices could be heard from the empty half of the house. There was a feeling that there was some kind of feast, but neither in the afternoon nor in the evening did I see people near the house. When did they get there? It was only towards morning that I was able to fall asleep. In the morning, I looked around the house without going into the yard. The lock was still hanging on the door and there was no sign of a party. Just in case, I told my neighbor Irina about everything. She was surprised, because she was busy in the yard until the evening and would definitely have seen strangers in an empty house. We went into the courtyard together and knocked on the door, although it was locked from the outside, but there was no answer. The next night it all happened again. It just seemed like there were more people. I felt uneasy. After all, I knew that there was no one there, but I clearly heard the sounds of the feast. I looked out the window. Of course, the other half of the house was not visible, but I was hoping to see a light from the window or one of these guests if they went outside. So I stood there until morning, and with the first roosters outside the wall, everything went quiet. I plucked up the courage and went outside. There was still a lock on the front door to the empty half of the house. In the afternoon, I told my neighbor about what happened again, but she didn't seem to believe me. And then I invited her to spend the night at my place. Moreover, I was already afraid to be there alone with the child. Irina agreed. In the evening, I put my son to bed, made a bed for my neighbor on the couch in the living room and went to my bed. Apparently, because I didn't get enough sleep for 2 nights in a row, I fell asleep pretty soundly this time. I woke up to Tatiana shaking me by the shoulder. "Wake up," she was whispering. "What happened?" I answered sleepily, "Shh, quiet." Irina cut me off, putting her index finger to her lips. "Listen." I listened and realized that now the feast is also with music. "Do you hear that? Do you hear?" The neighbor said, "There's a funeral march playing." There's a funeral. But what kind of funeral can there be at night? I was surprised. "I don't know," Irina answered thoughtfully. "I think all this is not good." As before, everything went quiet as soon as the first rooster crowed. First thing in the morning, I went to the post office to call my husband. The phone was at the post office then, and several people in the farm had it. There were no mobile phones at all. My husband told me that he would come for us in the evening. And in the afternoon, Grandmother Tanya's son came to us. He said that his mother had surgery 3 days ago, but something went wrong and she had been in intensive care for the last few days, and died last night. Of course, we moved out right away and waited for my husband at the neighbor's. I never went to this farm again.